I'm here today with Jerry and Mr. Richards. Thank you guys for both sitting down and interviewing. Okay, so the first question I'm going to ask is can you describe your perfect classroom for me?
Well, my perfect classroom would be a classroom where everybody in the room is comfortable with being able to express themselves and express their opinion and offer new knowledge to everybody in the room, including the teacher, and where people respect one another and they feel at the end of the period or at the end of the day that it was a worthwhile experience for them.
When I think about a perfect classroom, I think all of those things are terrific. But I guess I imagine a little bit more about what it looks like, and that is a classroom where students and teachers have less of where the differences are less obvious, where the teacher's not necessarily in front of the classroom, where perhaps students are working in small groups, independently interacting with each other, moving around so that if someone were to pass in the hallway, it wouldn't be obvious exactly even where the teacher is, because I think that everyone in the class has something to offer, and that the teachers, for the most part, should be sort of off to the side, maybe coaching, cheerleading, and offering help, but not necessarily standing in front
Yeah.
and talking, just talking.
How do you think it will change students, or have you either of you experienced how that helps students?
I think that students, when to tie in with what Jerry said a moment ago, I think that when they feel comfortable, when they feel like it's their classroom, they seem to get the most out of it. Because I think that number one, if students are interested in what they do, if they like where they are, then it almost doesn't matter what the subject is.
Yeah.
And there's this word that we hear a lot, engagement.
Uh-huh.
That basically means that, hey, you're sitting there and you're into it. If you're
Yeah.
into it, almost nothing else matters.
Yeah. I've experienced one of those classrooms, and it's really nice. It's just everybody's most of the people are. You can't say everybody, but most people are engaged. We're all learning, and it's a really fun experience. Okay.
It is, and people are more authentic. I think that's what you're also
Yeah.
saying. People are themselves when they feel it's their classroom, and when it's the feeling that the teacher's controlling every aspect of the
Yeah.
room, people sometimes will play up to that person.
It's also different for students because I've we're doing a 20% project in my class where how Google their employees have to take 20% of their work time on doing something they love. So I've my teacher has incorporated that into our just our classroom, and we get like a 20% Friday. So out of a 5-day week, the 20% is Friday, and we get to do whatever we want. And I remember all the students were like, at first they were like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? Because everybody's so used to being controlled by the teacher, and the teacher, it's like the teacher runs this classroom. Okay, you do this, this, and this, and then this, and this. And it was nice to be able to say, oh, I want to do that instead of doing that, because that doesn't really interest me. Okay, so on to the next question. What keeps you going as a teacher? What do you think will keep you going?
Well, for me, it's the unpredictability of the work of teaching, that every day is different. Every group of people that you teach are different. And so there's nothing boring about that. And that is the thing that keeps me going in education, knowing that each group of people has a different personality. And that's exciting.
I would agree and add to that the sort of the change and turnover every year. That I'd like to think that as I've taught, I've learned something from all of the students and have gotten better. One year, in fact, it was my first year of teaching where I had to teach exactly the same subject 5 times in a row. And for sure that sort of made the experience of learning over time very immediate, because the first time I would teach something and someone would ask some questions and I'd think, why didn't I think of that? And by the second period, I changed the lesson a little bit, and it was better than the first, and the third was better still. So I think I see every September as spring, because there's a new bunch of students, a new way of doing things, and I'm recharged and ready to go and to hopefully change and grow and get better and not stagnant.
Yeah, like the first couple of classes of the guinea pigs. Like if you're trying a project, you might have to tweak it a little bit. Like if it's new, you might have to tweak it.
Sadly, it's true. Class number one does not necessarily get the benefit of everyone else's experience, but it's I guess it's part of the process.
Yes. Okay. So, what is one of the things you've learned from your students? Yeah, like just from like every day. Like what have they taught you with teaching?
I guess I want to answer that first because I guess what I've learned is sort of outside of teaching. I've learned that a little bit, just to say a little bit about my own history. I started in classrooms as a sub, and so the focus from my perception of administration was that they wanted control. They would just be happy the teacher was out, that there was nothing flying out of the room. And so when the classroom became my own, at first I took the very same approach, like just everything ordered, a lot of control, and I guess I've learned that has led me to learn that students are a lot more than law and order, if you will. That they're doing all kinds of things at home and among their friends, and I guess I've learned to listen to what they have to say. Whereas in the role of sub, there isn't that opportunity to get to know students. So I guess I've learned broadly what students are like as individuals, and that has really helped my classroom instruction.
I have a similar.
Ironically,
Yeah.
learning about them outside
I've
of the
actually
class
learned
helps.
something very similar to that from my students, that in many ways that the students behave more appropriately with less rules, in a sense. That I read some study recently that sometimes schools that have the most behavior problems are the ones that are the strictest. They have the most behavior problems. It's counterintuitive. And if you have some basic rules about mutual respect and don't overdo the bathroom pass rules and things like that, and respect the dignity of people that are teenagers, then they usually act appropriately. It's that old idea: if you treat somebody with respect, they act respectfully. And that's something I've learned from my students.
Okay, well, thank you for sitting with me and interviewing today.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to share our thoughts.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.